Of course, in semiconductors, that is well established. It's a high percent of the exports. In fact, it's
60%.
What happens if there's a change in technology and it moves away? So you need to diversify exports both in terms of what the products are and in terms of the market.
So what are these products, John? What are these products?
Well, it has to be researched very carefully. Now, there's a huge opportunity for the Philippines right now. This only happens maybe once a decade or even less frequently. And that is that costs are rising rapidly in China. Labor costs in China are up 20% this year. The renminbi is slowly appreciating. Now, what that results in is, well, there's another factor too I'll mention. The yen has appreciated to 75. We're looking for a new wave of Japanese companies who can no longer afford to be competitive, moving out of Japan, and at the same time, companies located in China who may be Japanese, they may be Korean, they may be American. We're starting to see this, just beginning to see the signs that they're looking at the Philippines for the last couple, and Taiwanese as well.
So you're saying there's a unique position, right?
Well, they're not.
For the refugee manufacturers.
Really? Okay.
Well, we can call them refugee.
Okay, we're going to continue this discussion. We'll be right back. You're watching BizNews. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So, John, why do we have this unique opportunity right now?
Well, as I said a little while ago before the break, Beth, costs are rising in China, and China has been getting a huge amount of manufacturing investment. It becomes a hub.
The renminbi revaluation.
Well, renminbi, you're right, Tony.
It's cost by 25%.
But labor costs are up all over the coast.
So it's more
per capita income, it's more expensive. So companies, a huge company like Foxconn with almost 1 million employees, they do all the Apple products and other similar contract manufacturing. They're having to move their factories either inland in China or elsewhere. You look at the margins of manufacturers in Guangdong, which is the manufacturing hub of the world. They're very, very small. So those companies are looking at other lower cost production.
5%?
Oh, I mean, like the average DVD player, they make a US $0.50 profit on every DVD player for manufacturing. That's why they sell for so cheaply.
So that's why they're very sensitive to cost increases.
They're incredibly. Now, China, cost of labor has been low historically, cost of power low, but that's going up. And of course the renminbi.
And interest rates are also increasing in China.
Well, I don't know so much about that, whether you need that or not. But the fact is that the Chinese, of course, if you think about this, that the workers took power with the peasants, okay? And then they kept their wages low so they could capture global market share, okay? Now that they have global market share, they're going up the technology ladder. They can reproduce the equivalent of a Russian Sukhoi 27 fighter in China. They're going to compete eventually with Boeing and Airbus. They're putting a space station up in the next year.
So the lower technologies are now being...
They still have the job.
They're going into aircraft manufacturing.
They're going up the scale. But they sacrificed. Initially, they got global aircraft carrier. They got global market share. Now they go up. So they get richer and richer.
So that's the opportunity for the likes of the Philippines.
Well, we shouldn't be in that position. We would agree. We should have been up there. We should have kept our relative position of many, many years ago. But we lost that over the years.
We are natural to capture this thing because we are very near China, less than 3 hours away.
We have location. Okay. We have manpower. We have good weather. We are weak on business costs because there are other locations. Business costs are lower. We're weak. Labor is lower. There are fewer holidays, and power is less expensive. All of this is in Arangkada under section business costs in part 4.
So now let's just go briefly on each one of these 7 winners. So agribusiness is your first.
Agribusiness has great potential, and 30% of the workforce is in the agricultural sector, and many of those people are poor. And that's where the surplus population that comes up to the cities. And I saw my amount of squatters driving over here along EDSA. So if you can strengthen the countryside,
So what would be the
you will
headline
reduce the
recommendation?
population. Headline recommendations is basically to have diversified models of for the agrarian sector. 1987 and going back all the way to President Makabagal, you've had agrarian reform. You've pretty well distributed, right, the rice lands and a lot, not all the lands, but the recommendation, and this comes from everybody in the agribusiness sector except perhaps some of the social sectors and many in the religious sector, is that you should have diversified models. So, of course, you've distributed, you should complete, this current DAR should complete the distribution that still is to be done. And then you allow re-aggregation. That's one model. Because consolidation, 7 hectares is really quite small.
Yeah,
so you allow consolidation after the social justice that comes from the distribution. You allow, but you also strengthen cooperatives and the like. So you have multiple models. So that is to encourage agribusiness. Now the reason I talk about agribusiness is I'm looking for agricultural exports. I mean, the Philippines seems to have as its number one agricultural purpose rice sufficiency. Ever since I first came here during the grain revolution in 1971. But in fact, if you can get reliable imports or from somebody else who manufactures it for less, more efficiently, and you can grow something that's higher value in terms of vegetables or fruit for export, it makes sense from an economic point of view. I understand politically every agricultural sector has been told by every president to be self-sufficient.
We can make from mangoes, fruits and other vegetables what we pay for importation of rice.
Well, that's the idea. Yeah, there are trade-offs. What are you best at? And what are the markets?
Nutrition surplus.
Yes.
At the bottom
yes.
line.
Now, we've seen actually things like bananas. You know, the best bananas in the world are grown in Mindanao. Now, that sector has been steadily growing over many decades. And you just need to keep on adding more and more of this. You can also process foods, right?
But banana is
meals,
a 40-year...
fast meals.
So we haven't really packaged
Banana is a
ourselves.
40-year-old industry.
Yes.
I used to visit banana plantations in Mindanao back in the 1970s.
Well, so did I. I first went down to Deco in 1971.
I was sprayed with fertilizer from the plane.
You were?
Yeah. While visiting the plantation.
Well,
so
that's intended for the bananas, Tony.
Yeah, but the plane doesn't distinguish humans and bananas. The monkeys do. Anyway,
well, but you also pineapple. You know, the pineapple started down there, going all the way back to the 30s
the best
with Del Monte.
is also in Mindanao.
Oh, the soil. Oh, Bukidnon is one of my favorite places in the country.
The best
So what
mangoes
seems
in the
to be
world
the
also in
problem?
Mindanao.
What's the hurdle?
No, but they actually are growing. The pineapple exports are expanding.
The problem is land, John. You need to integrate the land.
Well, the availability of large land. Let's take, for example, ethanol. If you look at ethanol production in Brazil, why has Brazil captured so much of the world market, right? Yeah, Brazil, you can't even get, I mean, Brazil is all tied up. The Chinese have gone to Brazil and tied up ethanol exports for years ahead. They had land and they've expanded.
Only Brazil can do ethanol. No other country can do it.
Cheaply.
Yeah.
And if
the U.S. failed in it.
We subsidize it, and we do it from corn. We don't have the climate to do a lot of sugar
ethanol.
ethanol.
Energy, spending the same energy to produce ethanol energy. You might as well use the same energy rather than produce the ethanol.
Yes, but it's a political issue, right? We have 2 senators from every state, so the farm sector has exaggerated political power in Washington.
They tried solar, they also failed. It became a scandal.
Well, that's recent news. But now the price of solar...
Okay, agriculture has huge
Right,
potential.
let's go back to the Philippines now.
Okay, agriculture has huge potential with fruits, and you process the fruit.
You do exports, right? No, of course you have to...
And also marine.
Domestic, and the price of food here is very important, too. And that
the price of
can do an
food
issue
here
on
is
imports.
double the price in Thailand.
Well, this is really weird.
It's cheaper to buy rice from Bangkok than to buy rice from
Yeah, but they
Cotabato.
have a huge delta, right?
Yeah.
Now, look at the advantage that Burma, Vietnam, and
And
Thailand
Mekong River.
have from huge deltas.
And
We don't
Mekong
have,
River.
we have rivers, but we don't have these huge deltas. I lived in Vietnam when I first, in the delta in Vietnam when I first came. And it's literally endless, right? You go up to Central Luzon before you know it. You go to Arayat
Central
and you're up
Luzon,
in
we only have
Baguio,
the-
right? It's not
Central
these
Luzon, we have
huge
only the
rivers.
upper Pampanga River, Lingayen Gulf,
Yeah.
which occasionally dates with Manila Bay. when there's
Sometimes,
a flood.
I remember